This is Earthmovers
with Alison, Mariella, Désir, Stefanie, Flippin, and Verna Nesbegay Volker.
A trail podcast reclaiming the narrative.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Earthmovers, a trail podcast reclaiming the narrative. I am Alison, Mariella, Désir, one of your co-hosts, and today I'm joined by my other co-host,
Stefanie Flippin. Hi, everyone. Welcome back.
We are so excited about this podcast. It's been an incredible journey so far, and it would not be possible without Ultra. Shout out to Ultrarunning, our sponsor, who has allowed us to connect with some incredible voices, movers, and shakers in this industry. We appreciate you. And now, Steph, you want to get us started on who our guest is today?
Yeah, so everyone, I am so honored to make this introduction. I want to give a very warm welcome to a good friend of the podcast, Deo Kato. Deo is a runner and racial equity activist. He was born in Uganda and at age 10 came to London, where he still resides. Deo today is best known for being the first person to run from Cape Town, South Africa to London in the UK and to tell the story of human migration. His trek began on July 24th, 2023. It took Deo 518 days, and he covered a mind-boggling 8,230 miles. One story described Deo's journey as follows. It took him through war zones, and along the way, he endured serious illness, several weeks in jail, and after reaching Europe, daily racist abuse. But he said other experiences along the way restored his faith in humanity. Previous to this huge undertaking that a lot of us in the ultra world followed along, Deo created the 381 Days Running for Justice movement. Starting on June 6th in 2020, Deo set out to run 10 kilometers every day for 381 days to protest against racial injustice and inequality in society. The 381 days honors those of the Montgomery Bus Boycott in the 1950s Alabama, United States, and the change they created on the policy of racial segregation. This initiative also encompassed Deo running from Los Angeles to Las Vegas, carrying a customized U.S. flag where each star represented a Black person who had been killed by police. Deo also ran a double London marathon to protest against police brutality in the UK, known as the Unarmed Campaign. Additionally, Deo is the Spirit of the London Marathon award winner and is just all around an incredibly accomplished runner and human being. Deo, welcome. Yeah, I wanted to fit all of those accomplishments in. I felt like every single one of them deserves the attention, and for our listeners to truly understand the work that you have been doing in this space, Deo. So welcome. We're so honored to have you here.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be amongst you, because I feel like such a powerful podcast that you have. The name itself is mind blowing. I absolutely love it, and I'm really honored to be part of this podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, let's catch up a little bit before we get into it. Deo, outside of like running all over the place, what's been going on? How are you doing?
There's been so much that's been happening. I'm busy, focused on so many different projects, and also readjusting back into London life, as we call it. I'm readjusting back into work. I'm a running coach, more focused towards trail running and endurance sports, and the expedition side, which I'm now gearing more into. And also all the other projects, working with brands and other elements which I'm putting together. There's quite a lot, which sometimes I even forget, like how much I'm juggling and and the amount of plates I'm spinning to keep the ship moving. So I've just talked about with Alison is that, the amount of jobs that we do at the same time and still keep afloat, to keep going. It's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, that resonates with me. And the thing is, like, there's a piece of me, I meant we had a quick convo right before this that's like, oh, I'm doing too much. But also, I love all these things, right? Like, I just came back from New York. I was there for Take the Lead retreat. I'm a therapist. I'm recording season 4 of my PBS show Out and Back. And it's like, I don't want to stop any of it. Like, so I complain, but I also, it keeps me going.
It's
So
exciting.
so
Yeah,
relatable. I know. I'm always telling myself, I'm like, okay, you've added this to your plate. But Allison, like you said, it's like I so enjoy all of these things. I'm so passionate about this work. So it's so hard to say no and to to take steps back.
Yeah.
yeah. And I think it would be
Yeah,
boring if it was just a case of like, okay, I'm gonna wake up every single day in the morning and go to one base and sit there and just do the same thing over and over again. I
yeah,
mean, not to like, shut down anyone that does that, but I
sure,
think in the space that we are in and what we
It's not
do,
for us.
it's not what we here for. The service that we
yeah,
do and the
Mm,
work that we do is more carried towards helping others. And if you weren't doing that, then we feel kind of like we're a disservice to
yeah,
society. Yeah.
mm,
yeah.
mm,
Deo, I'm just curious, like day to day and just, globally, everything that's going on right now. Have you, because I've heard this from a handful of friends and colleagues too, who are deeply steeped in this type of work. Have you experienced any type of like fatigue or burnout just in terms of the work that you do? Again, I know running is often like a source of actually like energy for most of us here too, but I'm just curious how you've been feeling with recent current events.
Yeah, it's exhausting.
Yeah.
Honestly, really, really exhausting because the work that we do, like a lot of the things that people see when you put it out there, is usually the final or the
mm,
end product of
Hmm.
what we put out. They don't see the iceberg that's at the bottom, in the sea. You don't see the part
mm,
of the work that you end up doing before you get to actually even put out any information, even be it on social media or the smallest post that you put out there, is because you have gone through endless work to be able to put something out there. It's like the amount
Yeah.
of research, the amount of like the legwork you have to do, the conversations that you have, the legwork that you even end up doing. Let's say like you go out and do the run to actually get to that information that you need to get to, which sometimes becomes extremely exhausting. You're physically tired, mentally tired, and emotionally tired as well.
Yeah.
And then you put out the information, and then wait for the reactions. And those reactions sometimes even come back even more exhausting.
Oh, yeah, I was
So you
yes.
literally have to pick your
Yeah.
emotions up, from the ground and keep moving forward. Otherwise, you're going to be even more exhausted, and you're
Mhm.
gonna call it quits at the end of the day. But I think the work that we do is we're so emotionally invested
Mhm.
and so driven to serve our communities that we
mm,
can't let that take us down in any way. So I do get exhausted a lot, and
mm,
sometimes was when I'd have to pull back and I
Yeah.
say, let me just stop like reacting on social media or try
Mm.
to like literally pull away from all this stuff. And I'm learning all that right now.
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's go back to the beginning, right? You didn't
Mhm.
just, Rome wasn't built in a day or whatever that saying is. Take me to the beginnings of you as a runner, how you started running, and maybe what your expectations were when you started.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot. Obviously, as I'm, trying to document what I'm doing and reflecting. And to be honest, I think like I've been running all my life.
Mm,
Since as a child, running has been embedded into my system.
mm,
I'm from East Africa. I'm from Uganda, so we are known as one of the best runners in the world.
Mhm.
But it wasn't like I knew that I was running. It's only now I look back.
mm,
And when I actually said I'm going to start running, that intentional step is my late teens. And it was for health reasons, because I have a very an undiagnosed condition with my body that ended up forcing me to be able to find a solution for myself because I wasn't able to get that solution from anywhere, from professionals,
wow.
doctors, skin professions and all that. I couldn't be able to find that solution. And then I felt that I had something at the back of my mind telling me that if I run and do physical sport or something like that, because it's something I couldn't do before, if I do push myself to get that to that point, then that condition will become better. And that's what I did.
Mm.
It took many months and many years to get to a point where I felt relief,
Mm.
but eventually I was able to actually find that relief, and I can be able to physically be able to run properly. The condition like eased is still there, but it's at the minimum now, and I can be able to do, you know, go about my daily life in the best way possible right now.
So you were built different because I don't know, most people would not take their health into their own hands and keep
Yeah.
pushing, hoping that at some point it will provide relief. So
Mhm.
you, yeah, you're just a different kind of human. I love it.
Yeah, I love hearing that too. Dale, I'm curious though, when did running become a little bit more than just like the physical process of left foot, right foot, one foot in front of the other? And when did you really, um, yeah, like when did you really start to pair like the social justice work, particularly the project that you took on the Running for Justice movement in 2020?
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
this all happened during the pandemic. I think that the pandemic really shifted my life around. I became more socially aware of the things around me during this time. And then because of the issues that were happening in America, of course, specifically, and we are being really aware of during the pandemic the murders of the three primary individuals, you know, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and George Floyd. After the murder of George Floyd, I really said I'm going to do something about this, and I'm going to change the way that things are going. And I really, because I also wanted to, something in the back of my mind always wanted to do something, but I couldn't find a real reason to actually keep me going as much as I could. And I think that was the final straw was the murder of George Floyd. And then I said, you know what? I have to do something. There's no other way. There's no going back. Let me commit to saying I'm going to run 10 kilometers every single day for 381 days as a protest against the police brutality
Hmm.
in the US, but more so like in the global north, which is happening and
Yeah.
it's going on. Yeah.
Yeah, I really appreciate you sharing that with us, and also just as someone obviously who resides here in the United States, it's just it's really incredible to be able to connect about something that happened here and just really feel right the global impacts and just the reverberations that occurred after such a traumatic incident, and not just an isolated incident, right? We saw repetitive incidents of this in 2020 and since. um, did you feel the support and sort of the momentum building in the UK within your community, just witnessing these events transpire throughout 2020? Or do you feel like it was something that like you personally like really had to like bring to the table within your community?
No, it was definitely the momentum was there. Everybody was really like, especially in our community, you know, the black and brown community of ethnic
Sure.
backgrounds, we were all really outraged of
Hmm.
the atrocities that were going on and all wanted to do something different and
Yeah.
change the system, change and call for change. Um, and I think we all wanted to do something in our own kind of right way and right of how we can be able to do that. And for me, my running for justice kind of like brought on others to say they can actually try to do something in their own right.
Hmm.
And people actually also backed me as well and supported my movement and were able to say, let's all run together, because I was out there and calling for people and say, okay, you know what, maybe we get to day 100, let's all galvanize and do an online or you know, a remote run together, a 10-kilometer distance,
Hmm.
wherever you are, however you are, as a sign of protest and as one as a community. So I had like people from all over the UK running. together, like on day 100 and day 200. And that's how we got to I got to find out about Black Trail Runners because of that movement, and that's how we got all involved. And then it came to a point where I wasn't able to run during that movement because I caught COVID and I was extremely sick.
Hmm.
And Black Trail Runners came on board and said, we are going to run as a community in replacement for me running. So until I got better, they were taking on the movement, they were running out there. And that's what you get out of the community. And because people can see that the change needs to happen. And that's how it moved and caught fire.
Mm. I love that. I just, by the way, I had to switch up my lighting. I was like, it was getting real dark
Yeah.
over here. So, um, wow. Okay. So that's powerful. And then how do you come upon this idea for the run from Cape Town to London? I mean, this idea of tracing human migration is so powerful, but also so daunting. Like, I might have an idea like that and then be like, wait a second, Allison, like, we're not running 581 days or whatever it was. So, take me through the development of that. And I guess, like, what was it like did you scare yourself with this idea?
Absolutely. Yeah. I was definitely scared to come up with such an idea. But I think it's something that was simmering in the back of my mind as well, because initially I always wanted to do something, a run for Africa, but it was just kind of like on the smaller, a much, much smaller scale. For example, I had an idea like maybe I could run from Mount Kilimanjaro at the
Mm,
base and
I
Hmm.
know
then
that
run,
place.
yeah, and then run to Kampala, my home city.
Hmm.
And that was like the idea that's always been there. Um, and
Deo,
then,
really quickly,
yeah,
how far is that from Mount
Mm,
Kilimanjaro to your hometown?
actually, I don't even remember. I think it was
Mm.
like, let's say, a good 300 and something kilometers.
Okay.
oh,
Like,
nothing.
Okay.
So
yeah,
simple.
it's like a
Child's
2 week
play.
project. Yeah. And that was like the main idea. That was huge to me at the
Hmm.
time. But over time, like especially once I finished the running for justice and the community had taken it on, I had time to like think more and see what else I could do, how I can make it more geared towards the racial injustice fight and the protest and so on. So that's how it kind of like started simmering and say how can I make it more tangible, and it grew and grew a little bit more. So I done research and found out like, oh, okay, humanity started from Africa. It started in East Africa,
Mm,
and then okay, there's like down South Africa. There's also another remains of the earliest human on the planet. It's like, oh, all right,
mm,
okay, that's quite interesting. So how did that happen? How did people move from one side to go to the other? And it started to
mm,
go like that. And then I was just kind of discovering, like, it's finding small nuggets on how history is being taught. And I think in the back of my mind, I was like, the way they teach history today is the wrong history, or they just choose not to teach
Hmm.
the facts, or the things that just um, glossed
Yeah.
over to be in favor for the storyteller. And I wanted to change that. So I started digging and digging more, peeling back the layers, and realized that there's more to this. So let's connect the dots. And from connecting those dots, I realized, wow, okay, Cape Town is where is called the mother city. So there's a
Hmm.
reason for that being the mother
mm,
city. So if I come from Cape Town to go to Uganda, being my origin, that would be a very powerful message going back to my own country. And then from there, initially it was to go to Algeria because that's another point where one of the earliest remains were found, but it ended up not being turning out to be like that because of the journey, how the the conflicts
mm,
transpired during the old journey. But then I had to shift the journey into different ways to make it work what I was running. But it was all to go and move following those points and kind of like draw the lines, the routes, and everything else, and get back to London where I reside. um, you know, currently.
Gosh, incredible.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know Allison and I are like, whoa.
What?
um, Deo, before I dive in, just because I definitely, as a fellow coach myself, I definitely am extremely interested in hearing about how you prepared and trained for this endeavor. Before we dive into that, I do want to take a brief pause just to say another very sincere thank you to our presenting sponsor, Ultra Running. Thank you for providing us with the space and the resources to have these incredibly important conversations. We're very, very grateful to them for supporting us in these endeavors. You can check them out on ultrarunning.com. They offer free 30-day trials, free returns. And yeah, please check out Ultra Running. And we, like I said, sincerely thank them for their support here. So yeah, let's dive back into this. Deo, like I said, how did you prepare? Like, what was your training like week to week? How did you, I mean, when we're training for an ultra, it's like, yes, we have to get the volume up, but there's usually like a limit to that, right? Right. Like we can only run so many hours in the day. We can only recover so well from all those hours of running. When you're staring down, an 8,000 plus mile journey. I
Mhm.
apologize. I should have converted that to kilometers, but
Yeah.
my brain right now cannot even do that calculation.
Yeah.
Um,
I work in both. I work in
okay.
kilometers and
Oh,
miles. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah,
Yeah.
kilometers is 13,297 kilometers
Okay. Right.
altogether, and then the miles 8,000. Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah. um, I mean, to answer your question, it's something that I had to figure out how to really prepare for, because there's no blueprint on how to be able
Right.
to
sure.
prepare for something like this.
No, but
Um,
you could write that book.
I can,
That's a book we
Yeah.
need.
hopefully, I could be able to write that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's yeah, it was difficult, and I was trying to find research, and I tried to do, because there's a guy that ran from Cape Town to Cairo and broke the world record. So I tried to research and find out how he did it, what information was there, and there was nothing. That I couldn't find anything. I couldn't figure out how he did it. I know they wrote about, he ran through the jungle. He had to deal with these things, and I had to incorporate that and understand those things are going to be coming up. I'm going to run through jungles. I'm going to run through national parks. I'm going to deal with animals and stuff like that. So you can't prepare for those conditions, especially when you live in the UK. um, the weather's cold. The new I had to throw in some extreme weather condition training. And the best I could get in the UK is the cold and rain, and nothing more than that. So I think I kind of then I threw away the ultra training book of how to train for something like this, and I say, okay, let me go based on instinct. My
Yeah.
instinct says
Mm.
that I need to do, let's say, time on feet. So all my time, not to do running. I don't need to be focusing. I need to be out there running, because one, I probably won't be running that much anyway. It's more about how much time I'm going to spend on feet.
Mhm.
So I'll go out there and do a run, and then spend the rest of the day standing, for
Sure.
example.
Yeah.
That
Um,
sounds so unpleasant.
it is, yeah, it was extremely tough.
Yeah. It,
I do work that's I'm standing for 12 hours a
mhm.
day,
Yeah.
and I would spend so much time just like standing. And most of the people that saw me as well, during the period, I always had a backpack on my back with
Mhm.
me. um, so that's part of all my conditioning. I'm wearing this backpack as weight, and I'm spending as much time on my feet, and that's part of my training. And
Mhm.
then we did a project where, with Black Trail Runners, we went out to the US to do the speed project.
Mm.
And the speed project goes through Death Valley, and that was part of my desert training. I went there
Mm.
knowing that I'm going to do that as part of my desert training, how to deal with the conditions there, and how to manage my body with the conditions. And that was back in 2022, early
Mhm.
2022. So I was doing it like for a few years, and I had this before I even announced it. I knew
Mhm.
this was what I was going to do. And then I did one day. I said I'm going to go out and do a full 100-kilometer run solo unsupported throughout London. No matter what the condition is, no matter what it is, I'm just gonna spend the whole day running by myself, and that was just to train myself how to do that. Another day, even much earlier on, I said I'm gonna go on a run with the minimal amount of water I can take for an ultra distance. So I just went out there, drank, and I don't advise this for anyone to
And
do.
listen,
As a runner, I was
don't
really
do this,
extremely push
y'all.
yourself. Yeah, I just had a cup of water, and I went out, and that was the only thing I had. And I went out and did the 50K distance, conditioning my body again. But this is just to test my body. But I've been doing this for a long time,
Mhm.
and that's when I actually realized that at the end of the day, everything that I trained for physically doesn't really matter anymore. I now have to zone into my mind. I have to zone
Mhm.
into the what I was dealing with before, the issues, the problems, the conditions,
Mm.
having to deal with people that told me no. My skin condition, which I have, that people say like, oh, it's all in my head. For example, I went to a doctor to say that can you find a solution to this skin condition that I have, and the doctor told me that that condition that you have is in your head. There's
Oh,
nothing wrong with you. There's no problem.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
So I had to zone into that. People
Mm.
telling me that this is you're crazy, you have no issues. Because I knew telling people that I'm gonna run from Cape Town to London, people are
You're
gonna show me I'm
crazy.
crazy. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
So
So
you
how
had
do you
been
zone into that?
trained.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have to go back into my experiences, and that's the
Mm.
only thing that was able to really train me to
Mm.
get through this. Because there's no amount of training you can do to get me
Right.
to prepare me for this.
Yeah. Deo, thank you so much for walking us through that. And I just think for our listeners, just the long term approach, right? This was not like on a whim that you just decided to do
Mm,
this. You are a lifelong athlete, but you're also a lifelong advocate and activist too. And all of those pieces come together. And also, when you mentioned just time on feet and doing like work where you're just honestly standing, that's something. This is a conversation I always tell, especially like I'm sure you have this too with the athletes you work with, but athletes in healthcare, I'm always like, your job is like a part of your training because you're spending 10, 12 hours, right, on your feet
hmm
going up and down stairs in a hospital system. So yeah, I love the way you describe that, how it's not, you didn't write out this pretty like training plan, right, for this endeavor. It's you've been training for this your entire life, physically, mentally,
hmm
emotionally. Yeah, and I just think that's so important for our listeners to understand just everything that goes into this, your lived experiences, like what you
mm,
shared about honestly being gaslit by a doctor, and just how all of those pieces came together for your journey out there. It's yeah, it's really poignant.
I'm curious about some of the unexpected things that happened. As Steph was reading, you went to jail several times.
Yeah.
Like, take me
hmm
through some of the ways that life and racism and colonialism, all the things showed up on your journey.
mm. Yeah, it's a very unexpected thing that happened, because I envisioned there's so many things that could happen, and that wasn't one of them. That wasn't anywhere near what I thought was going to happen. But there's a lot of unexpected things that did show up that happened, um, and especially that come off the back of the colonial system that that we are still dealing with today in Africa, especially because one very early is South Africa, the amount of the divide between the whites and the black people, or the indigenous people of South Africa. The divide is extremely very, very evident to see. And I ran through areas where I, as a black presenting person, shouldn't have been.
Mm.
And I was strongly advised not to be running through there by those people. And that was challenging to go through that area. And me and my I'm a driver who I was traveling with, and for him, in his own country, actually to see that and experience that, because he lives in the city, and now he has to be confronted
Wow.
with real racism,
Mm.
and not knowing how to get out of it in his own country.
Hmm.
Um, and then we move up, into the other areas where people actually say that became kind of a running joke, is that you're going into the real Africa, the Africa that, when you talk about real Africa, is the bit of the middle Africa part, the Zambia, Tanzania,
Oh.
Uganda,
Mm.
Kenya kind of part. That's where the challenges really show up, like the issues with the wildlife, national parks, how to manage all these, the
Oh.
torrential rain, the weather conditions, the changes, the desert, um, because I went through like a few deserts. Actually, I went through probably 3 or 4. I don't
Mm.
even remember how many deserts I went through, but how many conditions, how much it changes over time. And
Mm.
then up at the top, the barriers or the border issues.
Yeah, right.
Um,
Because sorry to interrupt, but I'm
mhm,
thinking about like human right migration. Obviously, borders are constructs and
Mm.
borders don't exist. And yet, here you are going through land and
mm.
having to prove your identity
Mm.
at every point along the way. I'm curious.
Mm.
Yeah, tell me more.
Mm.
Yeah. So the border situations, trying to cross borders was so much more evident in Africa. In Europe, that was different. It was more about my ethnics, who I look like. But
Ah.
in Africa, it was very much, why are you here? What are you doing here? Where are you
Mm.
going? And why are you going
Mm.
there? Do you have the paperwork to prove that you can go through here? And the endless paperwork, actually, not just one piece of like, this is a passport. You have to have like vaccinations, yellow fever,
Right.
certificates,
Mm.
malaria, tablets and certifications. Like the amount of stuff that I had to carry with me just to cross the border to go into one African country to another is a
Wow.
lot,
Mm.
to be with, to carry with me. And addition on top is that I couldn't be able to run through these African countries with my Ugandan passport. I had to do that with my British passport, because
Really?
it's much
Oh.
easier to do that. It's
Mm.
much more easier to get a passage through as a British or European person, or even an
Mm.
American, than an African. We're
Wow.
Mm.
tightly closed in into each country. You can really see that we shouldn't be going over there. And most Africans don't
Mm.
have passports, because there's so many things they have to go through just to get a passport and to be able to
Mm.
cross the border. There's obviously borders which were a lot more easier to cross,
Mm-hmm.
where you see locals cross every single day back and forth and no problem. But to go and stay in the country, you face so many problems, and that's why somehow I ended up in prison, because in South Sudan, when I went there, I had to have an amount of paperwork, and each paperwork wasn't enough. It's like, okay, do you have this? Do you have this? Do you have this? Yes, yes, yes. But what about this?
Mm.
Yes, I have that. Oh, what about this one? It's like, the amount of proof that you have to show is never enough.
Hmm.
Oh, they just want something at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
And that's because if we've been so conditioned over time that we have to fight for ourselves, we have to only look out for ourselves. So people who are there, I'm just gonna say that without, hopefully not to, way of like saying, pointing fingers, but you could have an officer on the border and he's there to look out for himself, because he has to feed his family.
Right.
So he will
Right.
say, "Look, I need you to give me this so I can let you through if you don't have the paperwork," because he has to look out for his family. And
Mm.
if he
Yeah.
doesn't look
Yeah.
out for his family,
Mm-hmm.
they're gonna go hungry. They're not,
Mm-hmm.
they don't get paid enough being
Mm-hmm.
on those borders. They don't get paid enough to actually to stand on that on that border for so many hours.
Mm.
So these are the challenges that we face in Africa that people don't see, and those challenges go far back into, beyond what we imagine.
I just want to say what beautiful empathy and understanding you
I was
have,
Allison, I was thinking the same thing.
because,
Like, thank you for
like,
sharing that empathetic
yeah,
framework there. It's so critical. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, and truly, all of this is rooted in, colonialism, white supremacy, and the ways that we continue to have to be crabs in a barrel, take care
Mm.
of ourselves. Um, wow, powerful lesson.
Yeah, thank you for
Yeah.
sharing, Dale. Along these same lines, what are some of the ways your outlook on the world was changed by this experience? And honestly, how like did your relationship with Africa and even like Europe, how did your relationship with just your these countries change or just evolve as you made your
Mhm.
way like across these 8,000 plus miles?
Mm. Yeah, I think one lesson that came out of this is that we Africans, we need to do better to fight for our own continent and our own nations in terms of like opening up borders. And not so much like we need to do better; it's more like we need to fight more for those the African Union to hopefully to be
Mm,
able um, to push against these colonial rulers to be able to open up borders, and we're seeing that in Kenya in the youth doing that movement, and I think that's one lesson I've learned. But then going on to like things like in Europe and so on is like I realize how much love there is throughout every single, not just Europe, but there's also in Africa because Africa is so super welcoming. And in Europe, you have faced extreme racism along the way, racial profiling, being called out, and legal immigrant, but also people also came together to support me along the way and to help me in the best way possible to finish this journey strong. But I also realized that in Europe, there's barely any borders. You can cross a country as much as once you go into the Schengen visa area, and that area is like cuts from Slovenia into like going into the northern part of Europe, and there's no issues. You have one passport, move as freely as you
mm,
want, but before you get there, you have to jump through so many
Hmm.
hurdles, especially when when you present as a black person. It's you're seen as an extreme illegal immigrant. Um, yeah, so one side I was overjoyed by how much I was supported, but then I also became paranoid on how much I
mm,
was being seen on the ground and how who is maybe calling for the police to come and pick me up, and
Hmm.
who is the person who, on the face of it, seems to be nice, but then
mm,
in the background, they actually are racists. So
Hmm.
it's those questions that always came, and I was questioning myself constantly. But on the overall, from what I saw, there's much more good in the world than there is
Hmm.
bad,
mm.
and especially when they put it out, portray it in the media, it's so much more good in the world out there.
Well, listen, that is the message we need to hear in this
Yeah.
moment. And I
Yeah.
believe it from you. I
Yeah.
Yeah,
have I have one question left, but I have a quick one. What
Yeah.
did
yeah.
your mom think about this journey, or your
Oh,
parents or your loved ones? Because I don't know, I
Yeah.
have a son. If he tells me that he's doing this,
Mm.
I'm either saying no or I'm the driver.
Yeah. No kidding.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, unfortunately, my mom doesn't drive, so she couldn't tell me what to do. Yeah.
She's like,
Um,
thank goodness.
I
yeah.
know.
Yeah. I think, to be fair, it's the same, the reaction you would imagine. That
Fear.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
the absolute reaction you would imagine. What can come out of it? Obviously, we are African. We know how the countries that we come from, how they operate, and the things they do, and how they do things. But over time, as things, I started to move further up, her reactions changed and she came around to it and she became much more engaged and supportive. And she ended up being extremely, she joined Strava, let's say. She even joined Strava
Oh, that's
and she was
Oh,
on
big.
there
Oh, that's so
and
I
sweet.
love
seeing my
that.
journey and like
Well, she
reacting
realized
and
she could
talking.
track you, is what happened.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
now
So
this. No.
at the
Mhm.
end of it, like she's now, and not just her, like she's now moving more. She's out there and say, I'm
Mm,
going out for my walk in the evening and stuff like that. And even my sisters as well, like and they're all like doing the same thing because they've been inspired.
That's
oh,
beautiful.
yeah, that
Yeah.
really is so beautiful. Deo, we're coming down to like our last couple questions here, but something that I wanted to ask you is, what is like if you could pinpoint one takeaway that you would want, not just the running community, but like humans in general, to glean from your journey from Cape Town to
Mm.
London, what would that be?
Um, I think given the current issues that we have today, is that what we see on the media and everything that's going on in the world is not the reflection of what's off media. It's
Mm,
definitely much more better when you are off the screen and not looking at what's going on there.
mhm.
And when you go out there and meet people in real life, you
Mm,
can see how warming somebody is, and you look into their eyes and connect with them on a much
Yeah.
more physical level, on emotional level, is so much more. There's a much more better connection that you can actually have with the
Mhm.
people that are out there, and it just comes to show that if you were interacting more face to face, the world is a much more better place than when we are on the screens, because it's much more
Yeah.
easier to misinterpret somebody
Mhm.
and who or what they typed and what they put out there, and completely take it as a wrong way. But when you actually
Mhm.
are in their face and talking to them personally, they get to understand, have a much more deeper connection with them. So I think that's what I want to put out there for
Mhm.
people.
mm.
Thank you. Yeah.
There's a question we ask every guest, and this will be our last question. What does being an earth mover mean to you?
Oh wow.
No right or wrong answers here.
Yeah. There's a lot of things, but I think being an earth mover means that freedom, and freedom comes in a lot of different ways. Freedom for me is not being scared to pursue what I'm here to do
Mm,
and fight for it to ensure that the next generation gets a better passage than I have had being on
mm.
this world. So I have to, let's say, fight for my freedom, but as a consequence, my next generation is lives much better off, as we know. We have to do that. So being an earth mover, as in the most powerful sense, is freedom.
Oh my goodness. Every guest has such an amazing take on it.
I
This one,
know.
beautiful.
Yeah.
We are behind you every step you take. We are so thankful you are on this podcast. And again, a shout out to Ultra Running for making conversations like this possible. Like the
Yeah.
world needs more of you in it. So we thank you so much, Deo.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time, Deo. For our listeners, like Deo, where are the best outlets for everyone to follow you?
Yeah, I spend a bit more time on Instagram, so you can find me on Instagram as Deo Runs. You can find me on LinkedIn as Deo Kato, and yeah, that's those are the main channels you can find me on, and I was also on TikTok as well.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much to our listeners. Again, thank you, Deo Kato, for joining us today. Please follow us along on our Earthmovers podcast account on Instagram. We are available on all major podcast platforms, and we're so appreciative of your support. Please rate, review, subscribe if you feel inclined to, and we will see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you for the conversation.